welcome.
Welcome back to the iShook experience, where we embark on a journey of discovery in pursuit of the elusive work-life harmony. I'm Chad Nefussi, joined by my co-host, Benny Rachmanov, who's the CEO of iShook. And once again today, we are diving into topics that are crucial to modern professionals, balancing a busy schedule while also striving for success and having that balance with personal success as well. So in our quest for answers, we often explore the intersection of technology or mindfulness or personal growth. And we've met with everyone from geneticists to marketing experts to legends in the entertainment field. But today, Benny, we are really going to switch things up because it's time to venture into some terra firma. We're going to talk about real estate investing, real estate success, and not with just anyone off the street today. We're going to do someone who's been a true Horatio Alger style success story. My own father, Barry Nefussi, a self-made success story. He brought himself up by his bootstraps. He's a true inspiration, a true success in both work and life. So he's going to bring his wealth of experience and insight into how to achieve a work-life balance while managing a family, while managing multiple projects and raising wonderful children, I have to say myself. So throughout this series, we've shared some practical tips, some insights, these stories to empower you, the viewers and the listeners, in your own quest for balance. So today we're very excited to delve into Barry's strategies and experiences, which are going to offer these lessons for balance, for focus in both professional and personal realms. But first, Benny, I just want to recap, because last week's episode, that was money that was going on. That was so much fun. I know you really enjoyed it with our guest, Jonathan McFadden, who's in the entertainment industry. Wasn't it?
Yeah, I loved it. We got to bring him back on. That's for sure.
Absolutely. He'll talk all day, especially about himself. That's his favorite topic. And he basically gave us how he juggles working in the entertainment field, working without a lot of notice, and how to make it totally working for himself in a field that has really nothing that's guaranteed. And that was inspiring. He was a great guest. And he also encouraged listeners to reflect on their own work balance, how to set clear goals, and to consider even contributing to advocacy efforts for both yourself and for others in your own field, which I thought was really great. So he kind of gave us a comprehensive guide for anyone looking to navigate the complexities of a multifaceted career while also maintaining that personal well-being, which is the crux of our show. We're talking about finding that elusive balance because, Benny, there's only so many hours in a day. How do we do everything we want to do with business but still have a life? I think it's time we bring in our special guest. What do you think?
Sure, let's do it. Let's go for it. Let me bring him in.
Let's do it.
Okay. Which are
there he is.
Hello,
there
guys.
He is.
I am excited to be here. And in fact, you've already saved me part of my 24 hours, Chad, by that introduction, because
that's right.
You've said it all. And in fact, you've already proven my successes. That was a wonderful introduction.
All right, so the show is over.
My son.
That's right.
That's it.
We wrapped it up.
You have to. It's easy. You raise a son and a couple of them.
That's right. And they get you on a podcast and they talk about yourself. That's it. That's an easy way to do it.
I don't even have to talk about myself. You just did.
That's right. Well, Benny, so the reason I wanted to have my dad on, he did come from humble backgrounds. He came from Yiddish-speaking grandparents and really raised himself up in a true American success story to be this extremely successful business owner, real estate investor, but also was always there for his family, always there for things he loved. So he just has an abundance of experience, stories, and wisdom. So, Dad, I can't wait to get into your story. I know some of it. I've lived some of it. I don't know all of it. Benny and our viewers and listeners, they will gain a lot and learn a lot from what you've done.
Wonderful.
And Benny, as you always say, it's like when we read a novel and we get someone's life experience in a few hours that may have taken them 70, 75 years to glean those experiences. We're going to cover all that in an hour. We may have to have you on as a second show because you have a lot to cover. But
definitely.
I think
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. I think we're going to start at the beginning. Even in the pre-production meeting, we were already getting into real estate deals and the Jersey Shore and upstate New York and everywhere else, all the way through the Borscht Belt. So this is going to be an exciting journey. So let's get started at the beginning, Dad. So you grew up in New Jersey. I know that.
Perth Amboy, in fact. Perth Amboy.
Take us just to a little bit about what your childhood was like that shaped you into wanting to get into business and working for yourself. And that gave you your own renowned, legendary work ethic, at least in our area, a legendary work ethic.
Okay. I think I probably have to start with growing up with my grandparents on my Ashkenazi side, if I might say that, who lived upstairs from us in the home which they owned. And in terms of real estate, I never would have realized that my growing up with my grandparents would have eventually led me into real estate. And I can't even say that there's a direct link in that, but in retrospect, there is absolutely a link in it, because my experiences were my grandparents having owned the house we lived in and 2 other homes across the street, where my father and I, as a little boy, I mean, 5, 6, 7 years old, used to walk across the street to collect the rents. But that's enough about the real estate aspect. I mean, I knew it happened. It really didn't shape my life, but in retrospect, it probably did.
Well, let's pause for there for 1 second. So
Sure.
You're growing up, because it certainly did have an imprint on your life, because you're growing up learning, okay, buy real estate, build equity, have tenants pay for the payments. But also, how did your grandparents then get this kind of funds, being they were immigrants, correct? Are they second generation? How did they get funds?
Talk about work ethic. My grandfather was, in fact, the baker for the Tsar. Came over in 1912, where he met my grandmother on the ship coming over in 1912. And again, this is my maternal grandparents, okay?
Right.
And he came over and basically started working as a baker here. And my first recollection, knowledge of him and them was they owned the bakery shop. So ownership was a key element there. They owned the bakery shop. And as a little 3, 4, 5-year-old, I used to go there and bake rye breads with him. And I saw his work ethic early in the morning, late at night. He did everything from washing windows to whatever he had to do. It was his building, his business. So that certainly was ingrained in me. And I got the same thing from my paternal side, who they are from Greece, from Salonika, and other family members in Rhodes, because we're Sephardic on that side. And we don't want to get into what the Germans did, do we? During
that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole other show. And it is in itself. But that grandfather was a farmer in New Brunswick, of all places, which is now industrialized.
Right.
And I mean, he did everything from raising chickens and selling eggs to having a junkyard. The point being, I saw a work ethic that was there. Yet, as a little person, what I really saw was, hey, every Sunday we'd go with one set of grandparents and enjoy family, and other family members would come. You know, Chad, obviously some of the cousins. And that was just the beginning of that blending of work and life and harmony. And it just seemed to flow seamlessly.
Right. So that's interesting, because Benny, in our show, when I came to you and I said, this should be the show, this work-life balance, the iShook experience, because you and I, we've been seeking answers. We're having people in that have either learned it on their own in some sense, and some have had it ingrained from them in a young age. And learning that journey is so important to understand who you are today and who the viewers and what the viewers can take from this conversation, because we always want to have takeaways and learning, teaching lessons as well. So I see, so from your earliest days, you were learning from your own influences. And then you, of course, had to teach yourself this career, because you didn't fully understand or know real estate either.
I didn't know what I was learning. Okay. I was experiencing it, but didn't know how to apply it, or that I even needed to apply it, until I became an adult, at which point, oh my Lord, what am I going to do?
Right.
Out of college, you know, that's
which is a universal question. Everybody's asking that. A lot of our viewers and fans are saying that as well. What do they want to do? They want to work for themselves. They want to do a non-linear, non-traditional path instead of working just for a big company, but to kind of make it on their own in an entrepreneurial light, which you've done. So how did you go from on the farm in New Brunswick and the bakery in Perth Amboy to saying, okay, I want to get into this kind of activity? What fueled your decision to get into real estate?
All right. The brief story is that through 3 years of college, I actually worked for the Department of the Treasury in Trenton, in as much as I went to college at Ryder, which is in Trenton, New Jersey. So for 3 years, I was working at night, Department of the Treasury. They offered me a job when I graduated, and you'll find this of interest, I hope, that I did not accept the job from them. So therefore, I was unemployed. I walked around. I interviewed with Roebling Steel and Johnson & Johnson and all these major corporations with my bachelor's degree, and they weren't hiring. Why? 1970, Vietnam was still going on.
Oh, okay.
And I was a candidate for the draft. I was a low lottery number. Back then we had lottery numbers that were picked. If you look into it.
So lower is a higher incidence of being chosen?
The lower the number, the more likely you were to be drafted.
Wow.
Okay.
The draft was for 3 years chosen by numbers.
Right.
That's another story. That was a travesty, the way it was done. But anyway, so here I was offered a job from Trenton. Why didn't I take that? Right? Security, working for the state of New Jersey, because your mom, at that point, she and I were boyfriend, girlfriend. We test drove a Jaguar XKE at Reedman's in Pennsylvania, fell in love with the car, and it was $7,200. That was my goal. Everybody needs goals. So here as a senior in college, I had a goal, and that was to become employed and to buy a Jaguar XKE. And
the British Racing Green Jaguar XKE. It's
correct.
A legendary car in our family. I know
with
it.
A parchment interior. And
nice.
They offered me $7,100.
Oh my God! For the
so
year?
You say, why did I say no? Because it wasn't $7,200. I know it's not all one lump sum. I know they don't hand it to me and I run out and I buy a car. However, it was my goal to earn that in a year. So I went around. Nobody was hiring. And here I'm getting to the point for you. In my travels, driving around, who am I going to see? What am I going to do? I'm now engaged to be married, and I don't have a job. And it's 1970. And as I'm driving, I go past this real estate office, and the sign was Mario Lombardo. I hope I'm allowed to say these names specifically.
Sure,
Mario Lombardo Real Estate. And what struck me, I actually pulled into the parking lot. I sat there for at least a half an hour deciding what to do. And why did it strike me? Because every night as I would drive to work in Trenton on State Street, I would see a billboard that would say, your real estate needs are satisfied with Mario Lombardo Real Estate. I didn't know where the office was. I knew nothing about them. I didn't even think twice about it, having seen it. You know, just as growing up with my experiences, they were there, they were underlying, but they weren't on the fore. In any event, I saw the sign. I said, you know what? That's got to mean something. I sat for half an hour. Yes, I walked in. They met me. I was able to put two words together, and they said, listen, we'll train you, we'll hire you, and we're not going to pay you anything. But you'll earn it. You'll earn it.
So you had no minimum income, but you had no maximum either, which you would have had with the department.
That was the point. That was exactly the point. I wasn't assured of the Jaguar, or for that matter, anything. I had a 1964 Dodge Dart. But in any event, I saw the potential there. So
that's something that I want to hammer home, because that's a great point that you just made. So a little bit of belief in yourself, a little bit of hard work, knowing that you can and will do the hard work. You don't have to accept someone else saying this is your maximum income or here's a minimum income. You could say, I will be the harbinger of what comes into my own house, and I will work and raise the ceiling as I learn and as I work hard. So you incentivize yourself by being your own partner. You could have worked nonstop for the Department of Treasury, but you had a ceiling. This way you didn't. So
that was always my driving force, quite candidly. That was always in my mind as to why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right. To interject, side point, real estate in general is really a hybrid of a worker / entrepreneur. So you're technically working at a job, but you're an entrepreneur where you got to make your money and make your own market.
Every real estate agent is their own individual owner and their own partner, for that matter, too. You have to have confidence in yourself. And I've always said to every agent that ever worked for me that you'll never get wealthy by just making sales and in real estate getting commissions. You just can't. You will be satisfied. You will enjoy what you do, I hope. But in order to really make some money and satisfy your needs and goals, you need to invest in real estate. And Benny obviously understands and accepts, as does Chad, who's my partner in a number of transactions.
Yes, yes, we have many properties that we own together in partnership, many of which my father introduced me to invest in early on, which has now been great throughout life. So I learned that as well. So you now are sitting there and you're working, but you have no children, you're newly married, so you're not
Right.
so concerned at this point about work-life balance. You're more saying, my balance is work and setting up for the future. Is that correct at this point?
Excellent point, Chad, because that's exactly right. There is a dichotomy between the early real estate career as a husband with an obligation to a wife and myself, and then once children came along, your brother and yourself.
Right.
Big difference. And that's where the real difficulty came in terms of the harmony, because my wife was my partner in that she was very supportive, and the hours that you have to put in. And by the way, real estate is not a 9 to 5 job. Real estate is not a day job. It's morning till night. It's not 5 days a week. It's 7 days a week. It's all the time when you are an agent. And that might be true in sales for the most part, whether it's insurance or whatever. People might understand
Right.
and relate to that.
But you
Even though
have
the
to be
office may
available.
close, the office may be
Right.
closed, but you're still working.
Right. You have to be available when other people aren't working, because that's when they're able to go and see the properties or find your own real estate investments as well. So that's something that came from your work ethic, that's saying, I don't want to just do 9 to 5. You're not necessarily would even be satisfied with that. But one interesting thing you did, and this is what I love with the iShook experience where we talk balance, is you said, okay, I'm not going to work 9 to 5. I may be working till 10, 11 o'clock one night, but
It
I
happened.
will from 9 to 10 be coaching my son's basketball game. That's where you found balance.
Thank you for saying that, because yes, everything was a schedule with me. Frankly, I still, to this very day, at 75 years old, make notes for myself at night in terms of what I'm going to do during the day. That helped me organize. And what I would do is set aside time where I coached for 3 years, and every year we made it to
More,
the
I think.
playoffs, basketball.
No
So-
thanks to me. I was the worst player in the team.
Well, not really. You were just the worst fouler, or the
That's
most
right.
prolific. You were the most prolific fouler on our team.
That's right.
Okay, but it's a matter of organization. So that's how you help with the balance. I think that's what I found became necessary, because we'd be having dinner. You will recall this, and Benny, you probably can relate as well. I'd be having dinner and the phone would ring, and instead of thinking, "Oh, the office is closed," I've closed shop. It's 6 o'clock at night, and frankly, I'm with my family. We're enjoying ourselves. I think everybody in my family understood that a 5-minute phone call, sometimes a 2-minute phone call, would avoid problems down the road and potentially even create opportunities down the road. Not everybody, not every generation, frankly, accepts that.
I
Don't you
think
agree?
I think that's a failure, by the way, as a side point in life, work-life balance. That today, many religious sects or many sects in general, what happens is the kids get frustrated. Oh, my father was not with me, or my parents weren't with me, but they're preparing your future. And now, what's the future today? Most millennials, they're saying, the new reports are showing, are going to be living off their parents, both financially and both by home. There's no more true independence by these millennials. What's going on? Because all of a sudden they're too dependent. They became too dependent. They don't understand what it means when a father has to work or a mother has to work sometimes. They just lost that impression. Like whatever Mr. Nefussi is saying, it's unbelievable that even though you didn't know real estate, but the impression that your father went to collect the rent made it click. If it worked for my grandparents and they were rich and they were wealthy at such a in the 1920s, 30s to have that, that's crazy. That's
Right.
crazy to even get to a bakery, get to real estate. Think about how many people's even in our community can say they got real estate at that time. Very
Right.
few. And
Right.
that's a huge impression to a child and that's probably also the click what made you stop over to see that real estate company. Like, one second, grandparents had real estate, they were successful. Why not
Right.
me have real estate? Maybe that's an unconscious or subconscious, thought process that you had.
But I'm very glad to hear that Chad acknowledges and in fact even appreciated the commitment that I did make and that I knew I had to make for not just myself, not just for what I wanted, but my family. and wasn't going to find that as a negative or where's dad, because he knows I was out
Right.
an awful
Yeah,
lot.
but the older we get, the more we appreciate our parents. That's just the reality. The younger we are, we don't see it.
Yes.
Our
Although
vision
I,
I'm not putting down Chad. I'm just
no,
saying
sure.
in general, in the general scheme of
Well,
things,
I have to
most people
say
are like
that
that, including me.
a lot of people are like, sure. And you think as you get older, because then you experience it yourself as a parent and
Right.
say, oh, that's what my parents went through. But here's a great tip that my father did that I now do with my own children that I think people really benefit. Bring your children as much as you can into the fold to understand what you're doing. I was there as a child when we were looking at real estate investments at closing, meeting with mortgage representatives, meeting with all these people. So I wasn't just thrown off to the side. I was brought to the meetings, probably too many meetings, but it was imbued in me and embedded in my own psyche, a conscience that to think about exactly what would happen. So if you have to work after hours and you're looking to do it, bring the kids. Many times, Benny, my father would go on listing appointments with my brother, myself, and my mother, and we would have surfboards on the roof. So we were going to a meeting, and as soon as we were done, we were going surfing. That's balance right there. Literally bouncing on a surfboard and bouncing at the meeting before. That is something everyone should learn. Don't just say to the family, I'm out of here. Bring them into it. The clients certainly appreciate that you're doing it for your family, and then your kids will appreciate it, and you'll appreciate it. That became something that was done together instead of separate.
Right.
So that's a
But not just that,
fantastic tip.
as an investor, you would more likely invest at a person who does what you did, where you bring your kids to their meeting or to the event,
Right.
and they say, you know what, this guy is not going to fumble. He's got too much riding to fumble. I'm investing in that guy or that
Good
gal
point.
or whatever it is. Because if you had that skill set that I'm coming to the closing, I'm not changing it for my kids, right? The kids have to learn what I'm doing for them. And that puts in the light for an investor to say, I'm investing in that guy because he knows how to balance his work and his family. And sometimes he's bringing his family to work. That's cool. And I like that. If a person would have done that in any deal with him, I'm like, you know what? I can bank on this guy because this guy will
Yes.
be responsible. Just like he's responsible with his kids, he's responsible at work.
And Benny, he made us sure we dressed in really raggedy clothing. So we go, sir, we need the deal, sir.
Yeah, why not?
Please.
That's a different story. Why not? Play the game.
No, that is not true, Chad. But however, Benny, this I hope you'll appreciate as a single family home owner over the many, many years, and it's always been homes plural. There are unfortunately opportunities or circumstances that require you go to court, right? We all know that.
Yes,
Unfortunately, non-payment. That's why some people don't even invest in real estate, because if you rent it out, you have the downside, and that's a reality. You know, after the first time that one of my tenants went to court, bringing their child, saying to the judge, Your Honor, I can't afford to pay the rent. However, I have a family. I can't move. I don't know where I'm going to go. Look, I have a child. And I'm sitting there thinking, I have not only a mortgage, I have a negative cash flow circumstance, and I have children as well. The next time I had to go to court, I actually brought, I think it was initially Howard, and other times I brought Chad to court with me as a child. Your Honor, you will see, I have children as well. I have obligations as well. It's not one-sided because, the perception of the landlord is
Right.
one of independence and wealth and just on
Especially
and on.
in New York, by the way.
Yeah,
New York
deep
is a
pockets.
failure on that. New York is a failure. They've
It is.
destroyed the whole landlord industry. It's purely,
Disincentivized.
not just this is
Absolutely.
the scale has tipped so much. It's ridiculous. It's become to such a scale tipping where it's literally for the tenant and no rights to the landlord.
New Jersey's the same. New
Yeah,
Jersey's actually
New
the
Jersey,
same.
yes, because they're becoming more like New York.
It is. It is.
Right. That's
But
true.
but it makes me feel
So
good.
how would you balance that in work life? Because that creates more stress as a business owner. So it's
Listen,
harder to balance then because you're not having a pure flow of business this way.
absolutely. And that's the point. There isn't a pure flow. It's not constant. So certainly there are opportunities and circumstances for pockets of time. You have to utilize every moment and be the most productive in those moments and do whatever you can with them. And sometimes it's not real estate. Sometimes it is just go out for dinner. Let's go for an ice cream. Let's take the kids around, drive around. I don't care. I have to go look at houses and see. Take the kids for a ride. Let them see. So incorporate what you need to do with what you want to do and utilize your time because we all have 24 hours. It's a matter of how you
Right.
utilize your time.
Well, I told Chad, I think in one of our beginning of the shows, is that I work remotely. So working remotely, my kids see me every day when they come, and they see me every night. I mean, I used to not work remotely. I used to have to go, other places, and they would not see me at all when they were younger. But now I work remotely, and my kids do see me, and I think that does do an impact. I think individuals definitely need to change that. I mean, the generations have changed because of COVID for sure, right? COVID had created a remote works scenario. But I think in the previous generation, the generation that I believe Chad and I grew up with, and that's because of your father's generation, like my father's generation, it was more dinner family orientated. So on Shabbat, you would sit and eat, no matter what traditional or what level of spirituality you were in Judaism. We all sat down in dinner, whether it was every day, or whether it was Shabbat, or whether it was holidays. We all sat down. We all had that. Let's take everything away for a minute and let's communicate as a family.
Those boundaries.
I don't think that exists anymore. So
that's an allocation of time, and that's where some people don't even think about it. You need to. You need to be committed to utilizing your time and making a definite effort daily to do it, and then reinforce it. And then your children will generally come to understand it.
Right.
Obviously.
It
might take 40 years.
But isn't that a balance itself?
That's the balance. That is the balance.
Okay, right. But
you have to recognize it.
But they don't do it today. How many the night dinners are there without people on their cell phone? And
I think don't overgeneralize either, because there are both. I think there are families, I know that the kids are on the cells, and there are ones where if they say now is family time and we're focusing on it. So
I can tell you right now, a big entrepreneurs who are millionaires, they're saying they don't give their kids the phones at all.
Right. Yeah.
At all. They don't give phones at all to any of their kids till they're 13, 14. And when they're 13, 14, there's rules and conditions to high ends and with usage of the phone.
You talked before about technology and what impact that has had on the balance of work, life, and harmony. That's part of it. That is absolutely part of it. The technology that enables us to maybe have a little more free time. I don't have to run to bring a contract to an attorney. I can email it. I can fax it, whatever. That was a big change in my industry. But now you're talking about telephones and the use and how you implement that within your family and how you impart that. It's all a balance.
Right. And your experience, how honestly, you mentioned about running for a contract, right? And then today, I'm sorry for cutting chat. Just this I have to ask this question. How has the transition in real estate? Because we're also talking to entrepreneurs, right? With Midnight Market and iShook Experience is really for entrepreneurs and how to balance. But just want to know the change in the industry in real estate. How has the change and the transition really worked from your experience, from what you were to technology and the fast-paced technology in the past 10 years? So I believe in the email world, when the email started coming, it was a very slow transition of tech to the tech. But now it's constantly fast. I mean, how do you cope with those three transitions? The way where you had to run for something, then you had the email transition, social media, and now it's literally fast-paced with AI and blockchain and crypto and all that stuff.
Benny, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The changes in my industry, and I'm sure it's true in many industries, were dramatic. You have to embrace it. You simply have to embrace it. The biggest change, I would say, in my industry was fax machines. People are going to say, "What?" Some people are going to say, "What's a fax machine?" That was probably the biggest change in my industry, where, in fact, I was one of the first realtors in my county to have a fax machine. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of the attorneys I dealt with didn't have fax machines.
You had nowhere to fax it.
Right. So there was no point.
Exactly. But as it evolved, we all recognized the advantage of it. Again, saving some time. I was in the office being able to fax something instead of hand delivering contracts. And they became accepted that fax. Email was much, much later.
Right.
Even if cell phones in cars, they had a car phone in like the late 80s, my parents, in each car, which is unheard of.
I had a car phone in 1985.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
1985.
The reality is the fax and the car phone lasted for at least 20, 30 years.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right. And then that transition off fax became e-faxes now. You can still do a fax, but it's an e-fax.
People will remember the beepers, the same thing. Right. It was a little bit of technology which helped. You would get a beep to pick up a phone somewhere, put your dime in.
Was it stressful for you for these transitions?
No, I didn't find it as such. And in fact, listen, these changes are happening to this very day. We're getting emails about changes that are occurring in my industry that are impacting every single a buyer, a seller, and of course agents changes in commission structure. And I know we're supposed to be talking about investments, and we can do that separately. This is more of the everyday operation of a real estate office, salespeople, as well as individuals. But technology has to be embraced.
Right.
And no, it shouldn't be feared. It has to be learned.
Right.
So all the entrepreneurs who want to work-life balance, your work has to be also balanced first. So if you fear adaptation of technologies, then you have a problem.
You have a real problem. You have a real problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not going to grow. You will
Right.
not grow. And in fact, that fear will hold you back in itself. And that's in anything. Fear can hold you back. You know that.
Right.
Right.
And the nice thing is, Benny, we're here with the CEO of iShook, who has developed the iShook AI platform. There's ClickTalk. There's so many things under the iShook umbrella that everybody who's listening, don't forget, check all that out at iShook.com, iShook Daily. There's so many things that you can do to embrace this kind of technology under the umbrella that Benny here is running and manifesting and setting up himself. So there's a lot of tools that we'll plug at the end again, but I just want to throw it in because it's cogent here and it's really important to know. Embrace it. I don't think there's been any time in business than in the 50 years you were in business, Dad, that had so many technological advances going from literally paper and handing things off to light speed delivery of everything in that short span. Because if you went the previous 100 years in real estate, it was similar. But the 50 years you did, it was completely different in how the day-to-day operations were.
I would pretty much agree with that, other than those realtors that had to experience the use of the wheel to get from one house to another. You know,
Big innovation.
A couple years before me.
Right. They had to fend off dinosaurs and work out fire. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Whole different thing.
Yeah, there were
technology.
intrinsic dangers out there at that point.
I want to touch on what you mentioned. So you had a specific habit that you do now, and actually I do this as well. I make notes the night before. Okay, tomorrow's whatever. If it's going to be a Friday, here's my to-do, and I still put it on pen and paper. Hopefully, a little more legible than you write it, so I can read it the next day. But what are other habits that you had, or are there any other habits besides? Because I know when you take it off your mind and commit it to paper, it relieves your mind of having to use that space, that bandwidth to memorize it. So you would write things down. Were there any other habits you had each day that said, okay, I'm going to utilize this to balance my investments, my real estate, my operations in the office, my family, things like that?
Thanks for the question. I'm not sure. No, of course. I'm going to say to you that it was a commitment that I made to do the most that I could do and learn as much as I could. And that's part of, I think, the balance in there. It's not a matter of just going into work and doing the minimum that can be done to make it through the day. It doesn't exist in my mind. It shouldn't exist in any entrepreneur's mind to just do a satisfactory job, get it done, and then forget about it. So besides making notes, it's a matter of learning what else I can do to make what I'm doing easier and better. And by the way, you can't forget about the impact upon your clients, your audience, the people that you're talking to, the people that you are hoping to reach out to. It's imperative that we prepare ourselves on a regular basis. And if I might just interject quickly, commit to community. I was involved in I was a realtor, but I was also a Rotary member, and I became a past president. I am a past president, rather. I was one of the youngest presidents in my entire community ever in Rotary. I was involved.
And Devon Paul Harris Fellow in Rotary. Don't be so humble. That's a very huge award to get. Yeah, you got that. I remember that ceremony well.
I received the key to the community because I started the Bulletproof Vest Fund for our police officers and other things. Just involvement. That takes time. That took away from real estate. But you know what? It all helped real estate as well. And it also helped family. I'm sure, Chad, you might have not gotten a speeding ticket at one point. That's another story for another day. Or maybe I didn't get a speeding ticket at point where you were involved.
Right. Well, that's a good point. You were involved with community. You did a lot of good that also helped with the real estate, but it also helped your own community and helped you. So that was a balance that benefited all aspects. So that's an interesting thing to take away. If you could do something that benefits others, but also ends up benefiting you, that's a win-win right there. So
Right.
there's no zero-sum theory
Just
with
to
that.
clarify to the listeners, we're referring to the fact that you are doing community work. You get more connections, more resources, more
Correct.
sales.
Yes.
You're
I mean,
networking.
they might not understand, we just to clarify
Yes,
that
thank
point.
you.
Right.
Yes,
Because we're
It's
talking
networking.
subtleties right now.
It's networking. That's what you're
Right. No
doing.
doubt. No doubt. But you're still helping. And by helping, you get networking automatically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also learning. Listen, I picked up a lot of pointers from other people, other business people, especially in my Rotary Club, because that's an organization of only business owners, community leaders, and you learn some things from them.
No
And
doubt.
that's part of it.
No
Right.
doubt.
Learn
Right.
from other
Right. Makes
industries.
sense.
That's good.
And other
Well, let's
people.
talk about stress. So everything, because you're talking about all these things you're doing and juggling community, you're juggling all these businesses, and we're talking about work-life balance, but that's hard when you have so much stress. So there's got to be a way to reduce stress or deal with that. I know, Benny, you have your own ways to unwind, right? You enjoy a nice cigar or cognac at night, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm very physical, and I do a lot of things outside, whether surfing or whatever it is. Last night I was out in a boat at till sunset. It was wonderful. What did you do specifically to reduce stress day in, day out, or how did you handle that?
Depending on what type of stress. I mean, sometimes the way to relieve the stress was, in fact, to address it head on, take care of it, do it. Stress might be, I haven't heard back from this person. I'm stressing over it. We need to progress forward. I'd pick up the phone. I'd call them. I call that follow-up. That's something that helps relieve. Recognize what the issue is and then address it head on. But if you're talking about, obviously, other things outside of business to relieve stress, listen, sometimes a glass of wine, sitting outside, relaxing. I used to go to my office with my surfboard on the roof of the car, and I'd be exhausted at the end of the day sometimes, not wanting to go to the beach. But once I actually physically did it, committed to do it, and I'd catch a couple waves, just sometimes paddling around, it helped a lot. And that was something I did a lot. And that's how you and your brother got into surfing with me. We used to do it together. And guess what? We had a blast as a family surfing.
Yes.
And all of your friends enjoyed the fact that, hey, your old man's out there with us. And I love that.
So you need an outlet.
Right.
You need
There's
an outlet.
Thank you.
You need an outlet. That's for sure. I mean, and even if you don't want to do that, sometimes I don't want to do my outlet. I have a few outlets and I don't want to do it, but you got to force yourself, and then you feel that relief.
Yes.
Right. You're right. And right, as soon as you force yourself, you felt better instantly.
Absolutely. But again, I must stress that sometimes the stress needs to be addressed and understood, addressed, and then it can be pushed aside. You resolve the issue. So we can't forget that. We can't forget.
So procrastination is not a work-life balance, for sure.
No, that adds to stress, doesn't it, Ben?
That is the killer. Yes.
That adds to stress.
That adds to stress. It is the stress if people just push away realistic things that are coming in front of them.
In terms of my lists, I didn't always list them by the most difficult. However, I tried to address the most difficult first while I had more energy. And I would just take the hardest thing on, get that done, and everything became easier and easier because you would know what's the hardest thing to do.
That's funny. I do that as well. Actually, if I have something that if you're dreading it the most, get it done first, and the rest of it seems so much easier. So that's certainly a good way to do it.
What's his name? Who did he have 2 weeks ago? What was his name again?
Brandon Kinney.
Brandon, right.
Yes.
He mentioned the
Eisenhower
theory.
Yes.
The Eisenhower theory.
Which is
whatever needs to be done now, do it now. And whatever needs to be done later, push it for later. Don't make what's later for now.
Okay.
And push out the now for later. So if you need to respond to an attorney or need to respond to a certain client today, just respond. Don't push it out. You got to know how to. I got to send a clip on that, on the Eisenhower theory. I looked it up actually. It's actually a very smart way of working. It's more what Mr. Nefussi does, your father, meaning in the sense where he puts the notes for the day before. That's the Eisenhower theory. You're basically setting up what you need to do now for tomorrow.
Yes. Not enough people do that, unfortunately. I see that in everyday business. I see it in contractors that I work with to address whatever problems I might be having on some of the investment properties. And they're putting things off where they don't have to. Oh, it might rain, so let's not power wash the home. It might be too hot for me to work. I mean, these are real stories. I'm not just making this up. This happened yesterday. It was too hot. It was 82 degrees, but it was too hot to finish a
What
fence.
happened? What happened to all these
Oh.
skyscrapers, the American dream, building these? Now
Those
it's
are
too
the
hot at 80.
individuals, but that's individual. You know that. You can
Right.
take a handful of people, and how many of them really have that work ethic, that commitment, that desire and drive to make it happen?
So do you see more workers losing that work ethic as
Yes.
generations go by?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I see it in generations. Don't you see it every day when you walk into a store, in a retail store? You see it. You know, the work ethic is not there. The pride in what you do, regardless of what it is. Don't just get it done. Get it done right.
Right.
Get it done.
Well, honestly, I do see in Starbucks the work ethic is there, and fast food chains, most of the work ethic is there. I mean, you see it.
And you're isolating a Starbucks, and that's obviously true.
Right.
But you
Right.
can probably say the same thing about other retail stores.
Correct.
And it's
But that's why they want more money. That's exactly why they want more money, because they're really putting in the work in. And I get it why they need that more money. I mean, the Starbucks baristas, they work very hard. I mean, I see it
Well,
when I
that's
go there.
why I went into real estate, where I wasn't restricted by the minimum wage rather, or
Right.
or
Right.
by my.
Right.
If I produced more, if I did more, if I worked more, if I wanted more, I could gain it. I could get it.
Right. But usually when you have these real estate workers, like I know friends who are in real estate, or all my
Mhm.
friends are in real estate almost.
Sure.
Right. So they have this thing where these real estate agents undercut the other agent and they take over their listings. How did you work with that balance where people are like, you have to have the stress of dealing with other people besides the kids you got at home. You got to deal with the kids at work. So how did you do that?
That's a matter of competition. That's how you deal with competition. And you have to have confidence in yourself, knowledge of what your self-worth is. And that's what it came down to, a matter
So
of.
basically, you're
Yes.
saying a few peoples did undercut you on.
Oh,
on
without a
question.
doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
period of time when there was a broker who promoted himself on the basis of, I will do the same amount of work for 2% less than what
And
everybody
he's
else
under
is
your
doing.
and he's under your brokerage, under your
No, no,
agency.
no,
Don't
no,
say
no,
any
no, no,
names.
no. He
Don't
was a
say
No, I don't want no
competitor.
names. Don't give me names.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to know, like,
No.
it was under your brokerage or was it separate?
Separate brokerage.
Okay,
He was a
okay.
competitor. And in
Right.
fact, he was quite successful for quite a while because, listen, if you're going to save some money, you're going to go to him. However,
Service was not the same for
service
sure.
wasn't
Not
the same.
sustainable.
It couldn't
Right.
be. It simply couldn't be. There is overhead. You can't ignore that. There's overhead. Not every landlord is the same either, by the way,
Right.
when it comes to responding to issues, and tenants must recognize that. It's as in everything. There are differences in how and why you do what you do. And you know what? I do it for family. Everybody could say the same thing. I do it for family. It's a matter of how committed you are to really meaning that.
Right.
Right. That's true. So,
Would you
let's say.
advise? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, one more question.
No,
Okay.
you go, Benny. Yeah, you
Go,
go.
Benny.
I
Go,
can
Benny.
talk to my dad anytime. It's fine.
Would you advise people to go today to real estate or just become a independent investor? What's the best option? Because when I went to get a real estate license, I sat with the real estate guy. The guy was a schmuck in Queens College, honestly. I didn't like his attitude. I paid $1,500 to get the license. Eventually I said, I want my money back. He only gave me 200 less or something. I said, listen, when he mentioned that when you're a real estate agent, you cannot invest in a deal, or you got to be more, you got to expose more of what you're doing in order not to get sued. I said, this is not for me. I'd rather be an investor where one day I'll get a good deal and I'll buy it without having to go through this real estate regulatory system. So today, is it worth more while to be a broker or agent, or is it worthwhile to be an investor?
It's worthwhile and almost, in my mind, imperative to be a real estate agent. A broker, by the way, is separate than a real estate agent.
Yes, that I know.
Broker, owner. But the knowledge that you gain from day in and day out experiences, you will utilize at which point you want to buy, at which point you want to invest. In fact, it helps you know what is, in fact, a good investment. Now, to address the point you just made, yes, there's regulation, and that's for a reason. You have to be absolutely, unequivocally honest. I was going to use another word, but beyond approach. You cannot. If I had an interest in real estate, and if I had an interest in a particular home, I would let them know right up front. As a matter of fact, the house I'm sitting in, talking to you right now, I had a bank owner or a bank representative come into my office and said, I need an appraisal done on a piece of property. We're foreclosing. It's very important. And this addresses your comment. He said that I've been to other offices and there aren't qualified individuals. And I had the qualifications. I had my my degrees and qualifications in appraising. He needed an appraisal done on vacant land. When I looked it up on a piece of paper, I said to him, I can't do it. And initially he was mad at me. But why I couldn't do it is because, Benny, I was interested in that piece of property myself, for myself. And I told him that. So he calmed down, he understood. And I told him I will not do the appraisal and then go buy it. I want to buy it. Anyway,
Understood.
that's all it takes is don't let it prevent you from investing in something. Let it help you recognize what you should invest in and then do it the right way. Do it within the legal limits. And
So
yes,
people should go and learn.
absolutely.
No doubt.
Go and learn.
Did you buy it at the end?
I did. I live in
Okay,
it
I
right
just
now.
like
I bought
that.
the land.
That's the house.
Good.
That's it.
Baruch Hashem.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I paid a little more than I maybe wanted to, but that because there was other competition.
Right.
We did it the right way, and I own it to this day. And this
Benny,
is from
that's where he's
1982.
sitting. Yeah,
1982.
that's where I grew. That's the
That's
house
where
I
I
grew
grew
up
up.
in. The property I grew up.
Wow. Okay.
Beautiful property on the water. What a place to grow up.
So you see, there's
it was
a lot of work-life balance in work itself. I mean, you have to have a
Yes.
balanced work, and the ethical way of working gives you a balance at work to be balanced at home. I mean, how can you be balanced at home if you at work are chaotic,
right, and
Absolutely.
vice versa.
right?
Right, absolutely.
Vice versa.
Yeah.
Again, yes. True.
A similar story is I am selling one of my properties right now, and the attorney that I called to represent me actually said, Barry, this sounds like an interesting piece of property. I might be interested in buying it. And I said to him that if this transaction does not go through for whatever reason, I will talk to you about it. But he expressed his interest in it right up front. I knew his position. He's an attorney. I called him to represent me in the transaction, and I wasn't going to throw aside the other person. And he understood that. He accepted that.
Wow.
There is a balance. There's a balance of ethics. You cannot ever compromise ethics, ever, in anything you do. I'm sorry, ever.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Very much so.
And I have to say, Dad, you've had, and Benny, I'll say this about him, he had an impeccable reputation, especially when your last name's Nefussi. You know, it's not Smith. There's one of you in town.
Yes.
So he had an impeccable reputation. So anywhere I went, oh, Nefussi, oh, Barry's son, you know, so, and he was so highly regarded and known for being beyond reproach that it was also benefited and gave balance to the family, because
Right.
if it wasn't, it would have reflected on me. You, though innocent, are guilty for the sins of your father, right? But in this case, there were no sins. So we
Right.
got
The
to do that.
benefit.
So that
We got the
benefited
benefit.
as well.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
doubt. No doubt.
Because it affects everyone when you're doing that, for sure. But let's get into this. So you have all this wisdom and knowledge and experience that you've used to ride yourself in your own learning to become this success. So what advice would you give for young entrepreneurs now looking to be both successful and achieve work-life balance? And I'll tip you off with one of your favorite sayings that I heard ad nauseum growing up that I use myself today. You do the most productive thing at every given moment possible. And sometimes there's an adjunct to that. Sometimes that productivity is working. Sometimes that productivity is not working.
Exactly.
That's
the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you're productive when you're not working in many ways. But getting back to you have to commit to what you're doing. You have to do it as best as you can. And in fact, maybe better than you can. If you're at a plateau, what must I do to learn more to get to the next level? And can I tell you something? That's nothing that you can learn. It's inside. It's just inside. Not everybody has that will, that drive, that desire. They want to go home at 5 o'clock, and their work balance is, I'll work till 5 o'clock, and then I'm with family at 6 to 9 when the kids go to sleep, whatever the case may be. And they're satisfied with that. And you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I just am not that way, and that doesn't necessarily assure success, by the way, because there were things that had happened where it didn't go as I would have liked. Some investments over the many, many years. Not everything was a home run. Sometimes I just made it to base on them. And you don't know always in advance. So I'm downsizing my empire now to make my life a little easier, but I still manage everything. I still do it. My hands are in everything right now. Every once in a while, I'll get a call from Chad. Hey, I'm buying another house and I need some information on other homes that we own. And that's extra work. There's a balance right there.
That's right. Yes, that happens often. Yeah. So
But
that
did I
is
address your question? Did I answer your question?
well, in a roundabout way. So let's dial it in a little bit. So for young entrepreneurs, if they're starting out right now and they're like, where do I even start? What should I do? Because I'm getting from you, you're saying you've got to be willing to put in the hours. You've got to be willing to work. You've got to set your own boundaries and say, what works for me? If you only are looking for 9 to 5, recognize that. And if you're
Become
looking
the
to do
best.
it otherwise.
Become the best that you can be. And that comes through knowledge. That comes through commitment. I had a whole string of credentials after my name. To this day, most people don't even know what these abbreviations stand for, and it almost doesn't matter. But nevertheless, the knowledge that I gained from that helped improve my everyday business, and it gave me an extra confidence that maybe I would not have had. Seriously.
What I'm hearing is you need will to be ambitious and the will to be what is called learning, the will to learn. So if
you
you
need
don't
a
have
will to
those
wake
two,
up, right? You need a will to get out of bed.
if you don't have that, how are you going to be an entrepreneur and make the flow of money that you want?
An entrepreneur is just someone who doesn't know if they're going to make a nickel or dime tomorrow. That's what an entrepreneur is. You make it happen for yourself. There's no assurance. There's no guarantee.
Right. You're the market maker.
That's the definition of an entrepreneur. Yeah. You're doing it yourself. No limits, no ceiling, but there's no
safety net.
There's no safety net. That's right. You create.
There's a balance for you. No limit, no safety net. Yeah, you certainly have to balance in between there. In between the heaven and the fall, I guess you would say. So that's fascinating. And Benny, I know you do that yourself. You're constantly learning, you're constantly reading and applying, and then applying it to all these new ventures that you have as well. Because you're, every time we talk, have new ventures going on, new products that you're putting out under the iShook umbrella, new shows being added to the podcast network, things like that. So,
well, our podcast right now for marketing and the marketing that we're pushing is already 75,000 subscribers on iShook Co. And then once we reach the 115, then iShook Experience and Midnight Market will start doing marketing on those shows and getting subscribers on that. But yeah, for sure. I mean, but people have to learn to accept fails. I mean, I can't express, but a few deals I've done in the past couple of months were failures. Not just in the deal itself, is how I optimize my time based on people's words. And if you optimize your time based on people who are lying, then you just lost time, and that creates a fail. And you have to be willing to accept that fail. And guess what? For the past 2-3 months, I'm working sleepless nights to just catch up. So that's the reality.
But you learned from those fails, and you probably applied what you learned to help create that broader base that you apparently have, Benny, in iShook and the other related industries to it.
Well, I tell you what I did. Because of those fails, I right away said, I'm going to start creating a podcast network.
Okay.
Because I said, in order to create a real structured avenue, or it's basically, this is the microphone for iShook, for our products, which is through other social media platforms and through YouTube and through all the video platforms out there. And you need a team. So the team that I thought of before, and I tried to work with before, didn't pan out the way I wanted, because they weren't financially savvy. What's good about Chad and Kira, they understand modern day finance, which is very important. If you can't understand modern day finance, how in the hell are you going to start teaching people about finance? How are you going to solicit to investors?
Hello. That's right. Yes.
She's over here scratching at me. She wants to be on screen.
No problem. No doubt.
The brains in the operation. We say yes.
Yeah. I mean,
but honestly, you're right, Benny.
Yeah, it's just the reality. I mean, the benefit, like for example, Daniel Baldwin is a member of our company, and he gives a lot of benefits. He gives a lot of ideas with his experience in the movie industry and the production industry, and plus in business industry. He talks to dozens of people every day. He's connected to so many people, and a lot of his advice helps us. Just his advice alone is golden.
Benny, what drives him to want to do that now at his stage in life, in his experience with everything he's done? Why isn't he just sitting back and relaxing?
So I would suggest everybody to watch the Daniel Baldwin show. It's still there. It's about 15 episodes. We're gonna continue on again. It's just a little sabbatical on there. But he mentions that he's been an entrepreneur since he was a kid. He's been selling jeans. I mean, you could watch what he said. I mean, a lot of these stories that he has, I think it's like in the blood. I think for the previous generation that we grew up of, we're the product of the generation. I guess they call it, what is the generation called? Not the baby
The
boomers.
greatest generation.
The greatest generation. Yes. Okay. Yes. The greatest. The greatest generation. Okay.
And today, on our recording date, by the way, 80 years to the day.
Oh yes, D-Day.
Which is today. Amazing on the recording date. Yeah.
Right.
So that's
And you had a grandfather who was there. Chad.
My grandfather, shout out to Bernie Cohen, stormed the beaches on Omaha and survived and made it. So I was laughing this morning because I said 80 years ago today, my grandfather was storming Omaha, and this morning I was doing some light yoga. So what a dichotomy.
Well, there's a balance. There's a balance in there.
Right. There is a balance. But that's unbelievable. I didn't know he stormed D-Day. He was in D-Day. I mean, the survival rate there was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
That's from upstairs, my man. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, that's survival.
Oh, yes.
That's unbelievable. So definitely. So that what I see is that a lot of entrepreneurs are not able to really connect to that will. That ambition doesn't exist today. It really doesn't.
Thank you. It doesn't. It just not to the same degree in any event.
No doubt.
And I don't know why. Maybe because we worked so hard in my generation to make it easier for the next generation, just as my grandparents worked hard so that their kids and their kids' had it easier. Maybe we made it too easy.
I think it is too easy today. I think it's very much too easy today. And I think that we're too afraid of our own children to rebuke them in their mistakes because they fight back. God forbid if we would fight back to our parents or vice versa to your parents, Mr. Nefussi.
I didn't have to worry about DIFUS back then.
Right. But you know what I mean, right? Like you would you would never be able to look at your parents in the eye and say, no, you're like this. No,
you're right.
God forbid.
That's true.
That was not part of our structure in society.
I grew up, Benny, with just wait till your father comes home.
That's it.
That's all I needed to hear.
That's
right?
it. Yeah, that's it. It's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Today you say, wait till your father comes home. I'm gonna trick him, and there's already a whole plan how to get your father. My kids do it to me too. My wife says, "Oh, wait till your father. I'm gonna tell your father," and then they start doing their puppy eyes, and then they make you feel guilty, and then you say, "Okay, take it, leave me alone."
Listen,
I think we become more lazy.
You grew up painting houses. Helping remove garbage, doing things in between tenants, right? I mean, I had you working, schlepping from place to place. It was a positive benefit. Your brother will say you worked half as hard as he did, but that's another story.
Right. So, is the schlepping happening today in Chad's house? Do you do the schlepping to your kids?
And my kids do help around a lot. I do and teach them just like I was taught, which is good. And I'll give them credit. They do a lot. We make sure that they do.
Yeah, I do.
But it's interesting. When we look at a generational change in ambition and things, there's actually a historical context for all of this, because if you go back throughout time, if you look at the Romans or the Carthaginians, this society had a rise where it was by the people who had to build this society. Then it was a comfortable level. And then what would happen, a generation didn't know the struggle because there's too much of a gap in between. So then it became that the Carthaginians famously got overrun because they were known for being indolent after a while. But at one point, they were a warrior race, a scholarly race, and then the indolent race. So there is historical context for all that. Maybe that's what's happening now.
But
maybe not. Either way,
I would have to add something to what you're saying. And this is a must add because it's going to be good for the reels.
Yeah.
Today, in our generation, we have information and history. So we have more access to historical facts and ideas than they had in the Roman times. Maybe they had more, but Alexandria was burnt down, so they were diminished with knowledge. Today we have excess knowledge, but because of the propaganda to be, let's say, Holocaust deniers or history deniers of certain historical events, that's where it confuses the kids. Because the history should be enough to make people understand the struggle, with the pictures and the representations and the testimonies and the historical facts that exist. They should feel, wow, that was the struggle. But you know what it is? No one is teaching the history the way it should, the way we've been taught in the school. So therefore, there is no struggle. There's no empathy to the struggle that existed to say, wow, that's what I have because of these people, because of the Tuskegee Airmen, because of your grandfather in D-Day. They're not even educating people about that.
No,
I think that's really what's happening.
Yeah, and what is going on now in Gaza and Israel is a shame, and what Palestinians are learning as they're growing up is very different than what we learned.
True.
And without getting too political here,
Yeah, that's
without getting
fine.
any further,
We have other shows for that.
yeah,
That's right.
exactly. But it reinforces what you're saying, that it's how you're educated and what you learn.
True. It's all true. It's all about
Yeah,
education.
and you have to pass it down. First thing I told my children was that it was the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and to remind them where they came from and that we wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for those
Right.
sacrifices.
So only
it's
the
important
educated can
everybody impart.
educate. Right. So
Exactly.
only the
Oh, there you
educated
go.
can educate. That's the
I
real
like that. That's good, Benny. Yeah, that's excellent. So let's go. We've covered a lot. It's already been an hour. It feels like it's been 10 minutes. Dad, you've been
Yeah,
a
definitely.
fantastic guest. I'm glad because
What do I get
appearance
paid
fee
an
was
hour?
the appearance fee is through the roof to get you on here. So here's what the takeaways, the action items, and for viewers and listeners from what Barry Nefussi, my father, showed us. Number one, of course, I mentioned this earlier. Do the most productive thing at every given moment possible. Do not sit there with your phone and doom scroll. That's not productive. See what you can do, whether it's working or whether it is relaxing. That's productive too, but make sure you're doing it in the right order. Embrace technology. Do not let things pass you by. Be on the forefront of it, like you were, Dad, like you are, Benny. Like I'd like to be as much as I can. Embrace it so you're ahead of the curve there. Number three, make some notes. Good old fashioned, if you want to do it on your phone, or if you want to use an AI assisting tool, or if you want to just write it down on pen and paper, make notes, take it off your head. So throughout the day, you're accountable by what you've written down. Number four, think about the impact of what you're doing for the people you work with and your own clients. So you're not existing in a vacuum with what you do. There's an impact for you, your business, your clients, and your family at large. And this all leads to balance. If things are going wrong, your whole life is out of balance. Number five, commit to community. Dad, did you even know you gave this many good tips right now? You did. So
I did. I was taking notes.
I have more. Okay, good. So was I. Since 1976, I've been taking notes. So commit to community. As you build up your own community, it also builds yourself up. Also learn from other industries. Real estate doesn't exist alone. Real estate and all these other industries go hand in hand. Have an outlet for stress, whatever it works for you, have an outlet for it, and make sure what you're doing to commit to what you're doing, whether it is committing to a business deal, committing to your clients, or committing to your family and committing to the wave you're paddling for. And the last one, become the best or better than you can be. Strive for that and see where it lies after that. So those were the 9 takeaways, actionable insights for you, the viewers and listeners today, from 75 years of gained wisdom from you, Dad. It's been
need
very
to come up with a
eye-opening.
few more. We need a minion, right?
That's right.
By the way, I'm amazed
Almost
how
there.
Chad is like AI. He's able to do the full breakdown of the show.
That's right. Well, maybe it's all through the iShook AI platform. I'm so used to that. It's working. And, as you say, Benny, AI with a human eye. That's one of the things Benny says. So it all goes hand in hand. But
AI with a human eye. I like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're trademarking it.
That's
Okay,
right.
sure?
Benny's going to trademark it. Yes, exactly. It's a good one. So I want to say, Dad, thank you so much. This has been an awesome hour, entertaining and engaging and insightful. And I certainly enjoyed it, Benny.
Take this off now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you're done.
It's so hot.
Mostly retired. I know. Yeah, there's a lot of work for a retired guy.
I know.
That's it.
I was wearing a polo shirt before I knew you were calling.
All right, so we can end the screen. Yes, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much. Before you do, I do want to say before you get us off, don't forget, check out iShook Daily. Check out ClickTalk, CLIQTOK. Check out iShook.me. Explore our AI solutions at iShook AI. And join our social media community at iShook with integrated chat GPT built right in. Don't forget also on the iShook Podcast Network, check out Midnight Markets right here. It's a great show with Kira Deneen, who's a geneticist, and Benny. And remember, as Benny said in the previous episodes, for true balance, you must always strive to stay balanced. So thank you so much. Until next time. That's Benny. That's Barry. I'm Chad. Stay curious,